After the positive response I've received to my review of Batman Zero Year, the sort of story so far, I've decided to go back, reread and review the Court of Owls storyline, which was the first storyline in Scott Snyder's Batman run for DC's The New 52. Now, the way I'm going to do this, because this storyline is actually 12 issues long, I'm going to do quite an in-depth review of issue 1 and then talk about a couple of sort of standout issues in the rest of the run. Now, if you are worried about spoilers because you haven't read it, I am going to stay away from major spoilers. This is why I'm not talking about all the issues in as much depth as issue 1. If you haven't read it, you'll maybe get minor spoilers because that's going to be unavoidable, but I'm going to stay away from the major ones. You should be okay to watch this video. It's safe in the knowledge that I'm not going to spoil the plot for you. This is Batman issue 1. Now, this was actually released in November 2011 and it was one of the first issues of the New 52 to be released. Obviously, Batman is a flagship book. And going in, I really didn't know what to expect because when this issue came out, I hadn't yet read anything by Scott Snyder. I mean, obviously, if you've seen my videos since, you'll know that, I'm quite a fan of Scott Snyder. I do like his stuff. I've read quite a bit of his work. This story, The Court of Owls, in the New 52 serves as a jumping-on point for new Batman readers. So, I found it quite easy to get into, having not read his sort of previous Batman stories back when there was a different Batman and Bruce Wayne was gone and stuff. So, needless to say that Bruce Wayne is Batman in this story. So essentially we start off with 3 panels, as you can see here, showing different areas of Gotham. Now, straight away, this page establishes that Gotham City is going to be a character in this story as much as Bruce Wayne or Batman is. The panels are sort of littered with text boxes talking about when Bruce Wayne was a boy. In the newspaper, there would always be a article called Gotham Is, and Gothamites would write in and say what they think Gotham is, and some would be, like Gotham is villainous or Gotham is cursed and all the rest of it. And this is certainly the theme through issue 1, this Gotham Is article. So the next page we see Batman is actually having to face off against his rogues gallery of villains. He's actually in Arkham Asylum breaking out at the moment. So there's the rogues gallery, and this really serves to show off Greg Capullo's pretty awesome artwork. His artwork, and I said this in my review of Zero Year, the story so far, is pretty brilliant. I love Greg Capullo's artwork. I know that he previously worked on Spawn, and while I've not really sat and read Spawn religiously, his artwork, I think, translates well from that kind of, sort of gothic comic book to this one, although this one he does play it a little bit straighter with his page layouts than in Spawn. As you can see here, there's Two-Face getting punched. The attention to detail, though, is pretty astounding. So anyway, Batman's breaking out of Arkham, and then we meet the Joker, as you can see there. And basically, the Joker helps him escape. Now, what I really like about this is that we then go to a scene between Batman and Jim Gordon, who basically, they talk about why he was in Arkham and what he was doing, and he was basically going to look at a crooked guard who had been, I think, stealing money. So what this scene serves to do is actually establish sort of Batman's detective skills, because the level of knowledge that he had about the guard in Arkham who he was investigating, and it's really just a throwaway sort of case, it just serves to establish his skills as a detective, because basically I think this is really clever, is, Gordon's like, what, Dan Matthews, he's one of the best men on the payroll, blah blah blah, and then Batman says, well, he's got a father with health problems and a divorce looming, and Jim Gordon's like, he and Bella getting divorced? I had no idea, and Batman's just like, neither does she. And it goes to show that even though this guy is considered, one of Gordon's best men, Batman knows so much more than Jim Gordon, and he knows intricate details of the guy's relationship that even his own wife doesn't know. So it serves to establish Batman's sort of skills as a detective, and that's something that will come back, because one thing that the Court of Owls storyline really does is show Batman as the world's greatest detective. It goes back to that sort of take on the character, which has always been sort of prevalent throughout Batman history, but they definitely emphasise it with this storyline. We then get to see Greg Capullo's rendition of the Batcave there, which is fantastic. Now, what they do is quite clever for a new reader, but before I get to that, basically they establish that the Joker helping Batman escape from Arkham was in fact Robin, or well, Nightwing, Dick Grayson. So he was in disguise as Joker, so obviously it wasn't in fact the Joker. Now, looking here, what they do for new readers, which I think is quite clever in introducing them to the sort of pre-existing characters in Batman, is have Bruce Wayne use a facial recognition contact lens. So whenever you're introduced to a character, it basically pops up with a text box on the panel and explains, you know, who they are, what their security level is, you know, what their job title is perhaps. So here we see Bruce, you know, with all the Robins basically. And here, for example, we've got Tim Drake, and it says former Robin, current Red Robin, Teen Titans member, access level high. So as he goes through it's essentially a fundraiser, we get introduced to lots of different characters, and these text boxes serve to, you know, introduce new readers to them. So I think you actually have Vicky Vale pop up at one point. So I thought that was quite a clever way in introducing sort of new readers to existing characters. Now, here's a shot of Bruce Wayne at the fundraiser. Now, essentially what he's doing is announcing his plans to pump money into Gotham and to sort of reinvigorate Gotham financially, and basically talks about that article Gotham Is, and wants to, you know, have all the sort of rich and powerful in Gotham help raise funds to do so, and support his cause of, you know, making Gotham a better place to live. So that's another aspect of the character I really like, in as much as when you contrast that to Zero Year, which obviously is written later but set earlier than this story. In Zero Year, you know, Bruce wants to save Gotham through being only Batman. And this goes to show how you can do so being Batman and Bruce Wayne. You know, Bruce Wayne holds a lot of sway in Gotham and financially can really make a difference. So that's another aspect of the story I really like. So then we have Bruce Wayne lip read Jim Gordon on the phone when he's told that a body's been found. So needless to say, you know, chucks on the cape and cowl and goes to investigate. Now here's the dead body. Now, I'm not going to go too much into this aspect of the storyline because I wouldn't want to spoil anything, but I do want to say that one touch I really like, and it was something... Now, this is my third time reading The Court of Owls, and honestly, you get more from it the more you read it, the little subtleties and little attention to detail. I love it, the fact that... So you've got Harvey basically stood outside the crime scene, and Batman appears behind him, and you'll notice that his expression doesn't change one iota, as if he's so used to Batman appearing from nowhere, appearing from just out of the shadows, that he doesn't even flinch. And I thought that was a really nice touch, and that's something I didn't notice the first two times I read the book. So anyway, Batman investigates and identifies a warning written on the wall, written in a flammable fluid, which says Bruce Wayne will die tomorrow. So essentially, there's quite a lot happens in the first book, and or the first issue rather, and it definitely sows a lot of seeds into what's coming, you know, later on in the run. Now you'll see as well that during the fundraiser, Bruce Wayne is introduced to a character called Lincoln March, who is a candidate, I believe, for, is it Mayor of Gotham? And, you know, sort of little seemingly throwaway character introductions do come back, and, you know, they develop into sort of fully fleshed out and important characters in the story. So issue 1 of Batman, I thought, was a terrific issue, and it definitely set up so many different sort of potential plot threads that will be picked up later on that that made it interesting. And like I say, there's so much in there that you just get more and more from every time that you read it. And like I say, this is my third time reading it, and I picked up so much that I hadn't noticed before. It just makes it worthwhile, and it definitely makes it worthwhile owning it either in issue format or in trade. So the another issue I wanted to talk about was issue 2. And this basically starts with, again, you know, captions about Bruce's, or Gotham's architectural history and the history of Wayne Tower and all the rest of it. And I won't spoil that because that's a nice little sort of gag at the end of the issue that comes back. But he's basically talking about the gargoyles that were placed on Wayne Tower. We then see Bruce Wayne being thrown through a plate glass window by a mysterious assassin, apparently. So anyway, we cut back to, I believe it's 24 hours earlier, and Bruce, or Batman rather, is chasing a helicopter on his bat bike. Now the reason that I wanted to show this, because it's really sort of, it's not a major part of the storyline or anything like that, it doesn't come back. It's just a throwaway action scene, but I think this is indicative of the problems I sort of have with Greg Capullo's page layout. And how, where he chooses to place emphasis and stuff can make it very confusing as to what you're sort of looking at. Now, the panel in question, I mean, as you can see here, there's 3 very small panels that personally I thought should have been a bit larger. But anyway, that's like a minor thing. The panel in question is this. Right, the first time I read this, I stared at this panel for ages trying to figure out what was going on. Now obviously you can see a bridge here, is it a bridge? Yeah, it looks like it, with Batman riding towards an oncoming train. What's all this stuff that's going on down here? So looking closely, I eventually figured out that that's the tyre of the bike coming off the ground, because Batman's going to jump onto the train that's coming towards him, as you can see there. And for me, that is sort of indicative of sort of problems I have with Greg Capullo's artwork, in as much as it's such sort of a small panel, it's not clear what's happening. I thought that was something falling off the bridge, and I know it's such a minor thing, but I think throughout the run you do get the occasional problem like that where you have to look at the panel and really study it to figure out what's going on. Maybe it's because he tries to pack the page a bit too much. I mean, this was obviously very early in the run, and it's not a problem you really encounter as much now. But I just thought that was worth mentioning. We also go on to sort of establish the relationship between Dick Grayson and Bruce. That's something that's fleshed out and played with later in the run, but I don't want to spoil that for people. And then we go back to the character of Lincoln March, who was introduced in issue 1 to Bruce Wayne. They're talking in Wayne Tower and they're attacked by an assassin. Now it becomes apparent that this assassin is what's called a Talon, who works for the Court of Owls. Now they establish as well that in Gotham City there was a sort of nursery rhyme about the Court of Owls. You know, they watch you when you sleep, they watch you in your bed and all the rest of it, that you better behave or they'll send the Talon for your head, words to that effect. And it's a thing that's been around for hundreds of years, and Bruce has heard it ever since he was a kid. And that is the Talon from the Court of Owls. Now, Bruce is at first in denial, saying the Court of Owls don't exist. I looked for them after my parents' death when I was just a boy. I found nothing. I went so in depth. If there was a shred of evidence they existed, I would have found it back then. And he never did. So it's... Like I say, it turns out, needless to say, they do exist, and that's the Talon that's sent to kill Bruce Wayne. Now, it's not clear whether or not the Court of Owls know that Bruce Wayne's Batman. It becomes evident later on, but at first you don't know whether they're going after Bruce Wayne because he's Batman or because he's trying to reinvigorate Gotham financially. So, needless to say, a couple of issues later, in issue 5, well, at the end of issue 4, rather, Batman is actually captured by the Talon and taken into the Court of Owls labyrinth. Now, this is the issue. We actually spend 2 issues in the labyrinth. There's 5 and 6. And these are the sort of issues that people tend to talk about when talking about the Court of Owls. Now, issue 5 starts with, you know, basically Jim Gordon with the Batlight, and Harvey tells him, look, you know, you're going to burn the bulb out, you need to switch it off, and he's like, well, no, I'm leaving it on for all the other people in Gotham, and we can see them all here, all the other sort of heroes, to let them know that, you know, Batman's still out there somewhere. I think at this point he's been missing for about a week. So anyway, we spend 2 issues in the labyrinth, and we can see here Bruce against a sort of massive statue of an owl, drinking from a fountain, which is no doubt drugged with hallucinogenics. The issue itself is actually, these are real sort of strong points of the Court of Owls storyline, because you honestly feel like you're in there with him. You can see pictures that have been taken of people who have previously been trapped in the labyrinth and tortured. And the whole thing is told through Batman's inner monologue. And you can see, or hear rather, the insanity sort of creeping into his personality. and I thought it was really, really interesting. And you can also see from, you know, the rendition of Batman there that he's having a really bad day. You know, Batman clearly following this, and well, during this and following this, he loses a lot of weight. He becomes basically skin and bone. He basically looks like he's been through a real tough time. So that's one thing. Another thing I really like is that Batman's physical appearance changes for the rest of the run as a result of this these couple of issues. Another thing this issue does is, as you'll see here, is actually turn, and the perspective changes. So as you're reading it, you have to turn the issue around, so you get a few pages of it on its side like that. It then goes upside down, and people sort of really, you know, praised this. And while it is a really good, effective tool of showing the sort of disorientation that Batman's experiencing, it's not the first book to do it. I think the first time I read it will have been in, I want to say, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. It's, you know, a sort of a trick that's been done, you know, quite a few times before. It is done well, and it does really suit the issue, and it's very effective, but don't go thinking that, you know, Greg Capullo's like the first person to do this. As much as I like him, you know, it's been done before, so... But it is very effective. It also features one of my favourite panels, and I really should have had this marked before I started the video. I'll just see if I can find it for you. And it's such like a small sort of minor detail, but basically, and this is where you really get a sense of Scott Snyder's maybe horror sort of leanings, because obviously he's done like American Vampire and stuff. But Bruce thinks he sees his parents, and then they're sort of mouths split open and owls fly out and attack him, and that's one of my favourite panels, I think, throughout the whole storyline so far. I just thought it was fantastic. But needless to say, after 2 issues in the labyrinth, being stuck there and beaten up by the Talon, and the Talon really does, you know, give Bruce a beating, he manages to escape. You know, he uses his intuition, his intellect, and he manages to figure out a way to escape. Once he's escaped, the Court of Owls basically say, right, now what we're going to do is wake up all our Talons, who it's established they have a lot of Talons and only really wake up one at a time to go and wreak havoc on Gotham, but they wake them all up and say, right, go and get Gotham. Gotham is your city, go nuts. And it's up to Batman and the other Batman characters like, you know, Batwoman, Batgirl, all the Robins as well, and Nightwing and all the rest of it. I've not read the crossover issues for the other Bat books because, quite frankly, I couldn't afford it, and that's one reason I hate crossovers. Now, what I like about this storyline is that you can read just the main Batman title and still, you know, have a very streamlined and experience with a beginning, middle and an end. You don't need to read the crossover stuff, but they actually released it in a trade called The Night of Owls, which I know people have complained about because it features Batman issues as well, and it means if you buy Batman Volume 2 you're going to double up on the Batman issues, but I would maybe pick up the Night of the Owls, or is it Night of the Owls or the City of the Owls? Oh god, I can't remember. I think it might be Night of the Owls. Trade paperback or in hardcover, and you'll get all the crossover stuff. It's probably worth taking a plunge, you know, just to read everything that this story revolves around. So anyway, the Talons attack Gotham, several things happen, several revelations are made, and needless to say, and it's very apparent that this is going to happen, so this isn't a spoiler, but Batman saves the day. We then have, officially, the end of the Court of Owls storyline is issue 11. We then have a sort of epilogue issue, issue 12. Now, I think this is probably a divisive issue because it deals with a character called Harper Row, who Scott Snyder introduced very fleetingly in an earlier issue. This issue isn't drawn by Greg Capullo, it's drawn by Becky Cloonan, I believe. And I have to say, issue 12 of Batman is one of the best that Scott Snyder's written so far. He's now written about 26 issues if you include, you know, issue 0 and the annuals and stuff. This is one of the best, and he's also written another one which, in a different storyline, The Death of the Family, which I'll talk about when I review that storyline. But basically, first of all, what I want to say about this is that the artwork I love. It's very different to Greg Capullo's, but I love the artwork in this. And I will say, characters like Harper Row, who are introduced in comic book storylines, I usually dislike. But the character of Harper Row in Scott Snyder's Batman is such a likeable and fleshed out character that you can't help but sort of fall in love with her. This story, I think this issue is the first time in the run that Scott Snyder's come close to transcending the genre and doing something more. I mean, you look at the best comic book runs in history, you know, you've got Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing, which in my opinion, I've not read all his stuff, but in my opinion is the best thing Alan Moore's written that I've read. And I've read, you know, like Watchmen and all the rest of it, but I think Swamp Thing, amazing. Sandman, Preacher. The books that, as entertaining as they are, they deal with issues, or rather acknowledge issues, and just delve deeper into characters than comics rarely do. And they transcend the genre and become something more. Let's put it this way. All three of those aforementioned runs, so Swamp Thing, Sandman and Preacher, I cried at one point while reading them, right? So that's what I mean, and I'm not afraid to admit that, because when a story, be it a comic book or a TV programme or a movie, when it does what it's supposed to do and it gets that reaction from you, the author's obviously doing something right. Now, I'm not saying I had that reaction to Batman issue 12 because I didn't, but you can definitely see the potential in Scott Snyder of going down that route and writing something truly classic. Now, basically, the story follows Harper Row, and it's set in amongst the Court of Owls storyline, which is why I wanted to talk about it at the same time. She attends the Wayne Enterprises fundraiser for, you know, the revitalising Gotham. The reason being is she lives in a really rubbish neighbourhood and it's going to be part of the revitalisation. Her building's going to be demolished and a better one built, basically. She's, at this stage, not encountered Batman. We see her encounter Batman in an earlier issue, but at this stage in the story she hasn't. She meets Alfred, who catches her stealing brownies from the cake table, and he basically recommends, you know, oh, take these ones because these are the best. And I have to say as well, whenever I read Alfred's dialogue, I hear Michael Caine. I can't help it. I just do. She gets home anyway to discover that her brother Cullen, who is a young gay lad, has been mugged and attacked inside their home. They've been burgled. And not only that, they've shaved the word fag into the back of his head. Now, this is probably my favourite moment in the book, in as much as when she finds out that they've shaved that into the back of his head, she says, get the clippers, and he says to her, it's here in this panel as she's cradling him. He says, no, if you fix it, they'll just do it again. And she said, fixing it isn't what I had in mind. So then it shows them both at school, and she's in fact shaved the word into the back of her head as well. And I thought that was such a touching sort of moment. You know, it's moments like that that, for me, sort of make the comic more than just, you know, a Batman story, if that makes sense. So anyway, needless to say, on their way home, they're attacked by a group of thugs, you know, who, I mean, it shows that, you know, they are homophobic, violent thugs. They carry sort of flick knives and stuff, as you can see there. And they're saved by Batman. You know, Batman basically gets to the thugs and says, look, these guys are off limits. If I see you again, I'll break you in half. You know, that sort of thing. You're not going to argue with Batman, are you? So from that point on, Harper and Cullen are left alone, but Harper develops an obsession with Batman. Now, it establishes in the first page that she works on Gotham City's electrical grid, which it's so old and rickety it shouldn't work, but she basically keeps it working. And then she talks about her abusive father and how what she had to do as a child in looking after her brother is something that she applies to her work ethic in adult life. There's a lot going on with this character, basically. So anyway, she spends a lot of time looking online for clips of Batman and figures out one way in which he's able to, like, disable security cameras whenever he's going to show up somewhere and blah, blah, blah. So basically, she goes down, she finds that Batman's using the Gotham City electrical grid to his own ends, but he's actually helping it at the same time, which I thought was very interesting. We then see Batman fighting a member of the Tiger Shark gang, which is something that happens, I believe, in issue 3. It's mentioned in issue 3, and then we get to see it here, and Harper's sort of privy to this fight, and she actually helps Batman by, you know, they're on a boat basically, and she gets rid of all the water in the sewer and it gets stranded. So she thinks she's helping Batman, and Batman basically says to her, look, you're done, leave me alone, I don't want you anywhere near me, sort of thing. She goes home all excited, telling Cullen, you know, oh, I saw Batman and I helped him and I'm so awesome and blah blah blah. But it basically establishes that uneasy relationship between Harper and Batman. It's clear, and the actual other issue that I think is the other best issue that Scott Snyder's written in this run so far also features Harper Row. That's not why I think it's the best issue, but it's just a coincidence that the character of Harper Row is in the best issue he's written, in my opinion. And it establishes that uneasy relationship between Bruce and Harper. Now, rumour is, you know, that Harper's going to go on to become the new Robin, following the spoiler, but you'll know about this already, the death of Damian Wayne, the current Robin, which happened in Batman Incorporated, written by Grant Morrison. You know, rumour is Harper's going to become the next Robin, and everybody's like, oh god, you know, it reeks of trying to appeal to the masses and all the rest of it. But I like Harper. I think Harper's a great, interesting character. Like I say, normally that sort of character I would hate, but she's so sort of well written that, you know, you can't help but like her. And I would love to see her as a new Robin. But even if she amounts to nothing more than, you know, the occasional cameo, I'm happy with that. I think she's a really interesting character. So because Batman issue 12 flirts with issues beyond that of a comic book, in a sense, it's honestly one of the best he's written so far, and you can definitely see the potential, because I said in my review of Zero Year, I don't yet feel like Scott Snyder's reached, you know, the sort of heights of classic status on his run on Batman, but he's getting very close, and you can see the potential shining through in issue 12. So that is my review of The Court of Owls. I know that this has been a very long review, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Please leave feedback in the comments, because I am planning on rereading and reviewing Death of the Family as well as any sort of standalone issues that come in between as well, like the annual that I've missed, for example. So please let me know what you think to this video. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Court of Owls storyline. Try to keep major spoilers out of it, please, in case there's anybody watching who's not read it. And thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video.